What's up, guys? I'm Laura from Reading in Bed, and this is Friday Reads. So this is where I'm chronicling my 20 books of summer progress, and we're 3 weeks in, and shit's starting to get real. I'm on my 4th and 5th books, and I've written 2 reviews, but there's only 10 weeks left, and yeah, it's getting to the point now where I am kind of falling behind, and really the only way I'm staying on top of the number of pages I need to read a day is because I've been listening to audiobooks, and I'm going to run out of those real soon, so I don't know how that's going to go. And as far as writing reviews, so far with the 2 I've written, I've been able to do that on the weekend, but there's only 13 weeks total in this challenge, and you're supposed to review 20 books. So yeah, I don't know how that's going to go, and I've already had to make sacrifices. Like I talked about last time, if you want to read more, it's not that hard. You just have to replace something with reading, whether it's sleeping or some other optional activity. And really what I've replaced so far is reading the newspaper. Back in December, when I went off of all social media, I'm mostly back now, but when I was taking my big social media break, I resubscribed to paper editions of my local paper, the national paper, Globe and Mail, not the National Post, and the Sunday New York Times. And so that, gives me reading material every day. It's, a crossword every day. And I was really enjoying that. I got into this routine like very quickly, kind of fell back into a routine that I hadn't had since the early aughts. And was really enjoying it. But I find now when I'm trying to read like 75 or 80 pages a day, there's no time for that anymore. So I'm still kind of figuring this out. Just to follow up on something I talked about last week, I mentioned I had some library holds that would be coming in and might disrupt my list of 20 books, which of course was sort of randomly chosen from books that I own. And I wasn't sure if I was going to take any of these library holds and replace them on my list. So I have decided, at least for now, that anything I read that's, apart from that list of 20 is not, I'm just going to read it as a totally separate endeavor. So the one that came in was Ghostwall, and I am reading it. I'm on page 54, but I'm not counting it towards my page counts for the day. I'm not going to count it as one of my 20 reviews. It's easy enough to say because it's only 120 pages long, so maybe we'll see if something longer comes in. And then as far as the actual books I've been reading, since last week I finished Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, and I think I shocked some of you, or 2 of you, by saying that I didn't totally hate this book. It kind of redeemed itself in the end because I just appreciate what Jesse Andrews did in creating a real teenage character. And I've often said with YA, if YA authors wrote teenagers, I'll say teenage boys, but really it's any teenager, the way that they really think and really act and really talk, it would be unreadable. So that's basically what he does here. And I think he was successful in that aspect of Greg just being this totally self-absorbed, lacking in empathy, lacking in curiosity. The only way he sees the world is how everything relates to himself. But that's real, and he didn't get redeemed in the end. He didn't come to some grand realization, and that's also real. I don't think that, 17-year-olds who go through something traumatic immediately come to some life-changing conclusion. Often not. If that comes, it's going to come a lot later, probably. So I really appreciate that he stuck with it. Now, there are lots of other problems, and I'll, wait for the review. And I'm just left feeling can we not get a teenage character who is this awful and realistically awful, but also have a book that's well-written? I mean, can it not just be Catcher in the Rye that kind of meets that criteria? I'm sure there's others too, but you know what I mean, right? So after I'm done filming this morning, because I'm off work and the kids are at school, I am going to watch the movie, which I've heard is better, but I don't know, the people who say it's better maybe appreciated or didn't appreciate different things in the book than I did, I'm thinking. So I don't know. But this is going to be my little Friday indulgence, actually watching a movie by myself. Hopefully it's good. So now, other than that, as I mentioned, I'm on to books 4 and 5. So I'm reading Little Reunions by Eileen Chang, and I'm mostly listening to, but also own The Ghost Bride by Yangsze Choo. So there are some, strange parallels between these 2 books. And again, I chose my list of 20 books completely randomly, chose the order randomly, so it is just a coincidence that I'm reading these two at the same time, because they are both by authors of Chinese descent. They both deal with coming of age. We've got a female character sort of in her late teens. We've got them kind of bumping up against cultural traditions and oppression and, you know, the need to get married and, you know, dealing with mothers or mother figures anyway. And so there are a lot of parallels, but the way these books are written could not be more different. The Ghost Bride, I think, is sold as like literary fiction, but I'm reading this much more like a romance, because there's a lot of cliched writing in here, and there's a lot of foreshadowing, like the kind where I'm like, okay, I get it. But the romance is really working for me, so I'm trying to just like have fun with it. So, you know, this is about what I believe is or was a real cultural practice where, you know, a woman could marry sort of by proxy a man who's already dead. And so she would like just basically live in his family's household as a widow, and be taken care of that way. And it would like bring some sort of, I'm not sure like what the benefit was to the family. I haven't, it hasn't been described in great detail yet, but so that's what's happening with this young woman in the story. But of course she falls in love with the dead guy's cousin, who is supposed to marry someone else from a rich family. And, you know, like you can see where this is going. But so I'm just trying to have fun with this one, honestly, and like appreciate the setting and appreciate all the supernatural elements. Because in the universe of this book, like the ghost wedding thing is real, like ghosts are real. This dead guy is haunting her dreams and stuff. So, you know, I'm just going with it. On the other hand, we've got Little Reunions by Eileen Chang, which is, I think if it was written today, it would be called autofiction, because it just stays very close to her actual timeline and things that actually happen in her life. So this one, I should have said The Ghost Bride is set in 1890s Malaysia. This one is set in 1930s, 40s, like Hong Kong and China. And it's told, like, you know, I talked about cliches and foreshadowing. I kind of wish there were more cliches and foreshadowing in here so I could know what the heck is going on. It's actually reminding me of Love in the New Millennium by Choo, which, you know, if you read my review on the blog of that book, I could make neither heads nor tails of that one. This one isn't quite that dissociated and you know, just vignettes that don't, like, come together at all. Like they do come together. We do have one main character, Julie. We are following her sort of as she grows up, and but the timeline shifts back and forth all the time with nothing to sort of tell you when that's happening. There's so many characters. Thank God there's a character list in here. The things the characters say to each other, to me at least, feel very sort of like out of nowhere, like there's just no context given. So it feels like something she's writing to herself, and I believe that this was published posthumously, and maybe it wasn't ready. It feels kind of unfinished, honestly, but there's so many, you know, just weird and wonderful turns of phrase and stuff. So whereas with The Ghost Bride, I'm reading for plot, with this one, I'm reading for writing. And so maybe it works that I'm reading them together so I can appreciate kind of those two different sides. Oh, and the other thing with Little Reunions that's really interesting is that it covers the exact same timeline pretty much as The Watch That Ends the Night. So we're covering sort of that pre and post World War II period, and very much dealing with political situations with, you know, the rise of communism and stuff like that, but obviously from like a very different perspective, both like in, you know, culturally and setting wise, but also that we have a, you know, 18-year-old female character as opposed to, you know, a guy sort of in his 20s, 30s, 40s experiencing the same time period in Canada. So that's been interesting too. Okay, so that's kind of all that's going on with the 20 books of summer, and I just wanted to give two more quick shout outs to BookTube videos that I've enjoyed in the past week. So the first one was from Infinite Text, and she revisits some of her death shelf reading. So she's really into books about death, like the cultural practices, burial practices, etc. And she's recently had a death in her family, so she's revisiting some of those books from her perspective of someone who is like recently bereaved, and it's just really thoughtful and interesting. So do check that one out. I'll link it below. The other one I wanted to shout out was Big Al Books, who filmed a 30-minute wrap-up covering the Asian Readathon, and those are all, you know, like wrap-ups and themed reading and half-hour videos. None of those are things that I particularly like, but that video flew by for me, so, you know, she must be doing something right. So anyways, check those out. I'm going to check out all of your Friday reads. I'm also going to film the mid-year book tag right now, and then I'm going to go watch this movie. So happy Friday.